What's up, nerds, and welcome back. As I'm sure we're all aware right now, the Moon Knight series is currently premiering on Disney Plus, and whether you've seen it or not, I have seen it myself, so I have some thoughts about it that I will be sharing at the end of this video. But first, I want to talk about the latest issue of the comic series that's been going on since before the show began, with Moon Knight number 10. So as I said, we're here to talk about Moon Knight number 10, and I did not do a review for issue number 9. There wasn't a whole lot that happened in that. Basically, it was just kind of like a framing issue, wherein we basically found out that after Moon Knight's old Midnight mission was blown up by the new villain Zodiac, he ended up taking on this other mission to investigate some strange happenings in a condo, like building or whatever, and come to find out that the top floor was actually the House of Shadows. So he ended up making a deal with the House of Shadows since it is sentient. He ended up making a deal with it to become his new Midnight mission. So that's where we're picking up. He now has this new base. So let's just get straight into the issue. So again, we have this whole thing going on with the therapy thing, but this time it's actually going to take a little bit of a different turn from what it's been doing for the last few issues. So you can see here where he's sitting in the office and, Dr. Sturman is, telling him this is a change because as we can see, he's sitting there in his Moon Knight when he goes out to be a superhero. That's what he's sitting there, instead of the nice suit that we've all seen him in pretty much every time he's here in her office. And he's just telling you, that's the thing, the moon changes. Already kind of sets up for us that there's going to be something different going on with this particular visit that you may possibly already be able to figure out, and it will become very clear pretty quickly. We go back over to the Midnight mission, and we see here where Rutherford Winter, who showed up at the end of the last issue, seeing, Moon Knight at his new location, he's about to walk in, and Moon Knight's telling Dr. Sturman, I met one of your other patients, and he tells her Rutherford Winter. So then we see where he walks in, and it just kind of looks like an M.C. Escher drawing, quite honestly. But he tells Dr. Sturman that he came to his home with a gun. So she just starts telling him, he's dangerous. And he's like, yeah, I figured that much. And then she starts giving us the whole exposition dump saying he's intrinsically broken and gives us the rundown about how he had history with Hydra. And then he went through the Pygmalion Project and that she's read his SHIELD files and how Fury called him a homicidal artificial personality trapped in a delusional narrative. So he says, interesting. You think Winter can't be saved? And she just, very nonchalantly tells him he's a wild dog. He can't be saved. He can only be contained. So then we go back over to the Midnight mission where he's, greeting him saying, coming into my home with a gun like this, I think you made a mistake. And that's when Winter tells him, I've made many of them. Rutherford Winter, your Moon Knight I take? He's like, come on. I wear a moon on my chest and live in a haunted house. You do the math. It's not that hard to figure out who I am. They get into the whole little fight or whatever. They're trading blows back and forth. And Moon Knight's actually a little bit impressed. He says, you're good. And that's when he tells him, I was built to be. So he just says, funny, and then they keep going with the fight. He says, so was I. And then they kind of get to the point where he's telling him, I want my doctor back, Moon Knight. What have you done with her? And he's just like, is that what this is about? You're jealous that she has another patient. So he tells, the building to shake things up a little bit so he can get the upper foot. Winter tells him, jealous? You don't understand what's happening, Moon Knight. I am unwell, and I wish to be better. He says, for that, I require my doctor. Again, what have you done to her? So Moon Knight's still not really picking up on it, but it goes back over to his meeting with Dr. Sturman, and he's saying, contained? Do I need to be contained? And she just tells him, no. If you've proved anything over the last several months, it's that you defy containment by your very nature, or rather conventional definitions of containment. You're drawing comparisons between yourself and Winter, Mark. It's natural to see the similarities in what Hydra did to him and what Khonshu did to you. But where you're different is that I believe you are suffering from the containment you've placed yourself in. Zodiac told you that you could really be something if you let loose the leash you have on yourself, that you're keeping yourself back from self-actualization. What if he was right? You've described how you're driven by guilt, But have you explored severing yourself from that guilt? Exploring what you really are, unfettered by such a petty concern? You've described how you're driven by debt. But why should you be so indebted to Khonshu that you pursue what you think of as justice in his service, just because he saved your life? How many lives have you saved, Mark? How many of them have become your fists? And then he just kind of drops it on the table and says, "You didn't ask me what I did to Winter." And she says, "Is it important? I assumed you captured him if you didn't kill him." He says, "No, you went all in on discrediting him before I could talk about what he said. Sure, he's brainwashed, a super killer with a stack of bodies to his name. That is something we have in common. But you didn't mention the most important thing we have in common. We both want to get better." And then she just tells him, there's no getting better for him. He was conditioned, he was built as an experiment. And after everything he went through, he was never even meant for long term survival. So he's a broken weapon. He has no future, whereas you do. That's what we need to be talking about, Mark. What your future looks like. So he just says, "If she's dead, I'm going to hurt you beyond comprehension," which obviously comes across as a little bit strange. So when we go over to Dr. Sturman, she's just kind of sitting there starting to sweat and saying, "What?" So we get a close up on him as he says, "I want you to know that before we begin. It's going to go very badly for Zodiac. Nothing can stop that. But if she's dead, then you live, and you will know nothing but pain for the rest of your existence." Even more sweating as she says, "Mark, what?" He says, "I should have clocked you, but I've been busy, stretched thin, and I haven't been her patient for that long. Not like Winter was. Winter, who thought I was responsible, until he realized he was wrong." So that's when he finally drops it and says, "That thing is not Andrea Sturman." So he says, "Once I remembered the women, then it made sense. 3 dead women, suffocated, when I was in jail, but spread across the city and nowhere near my territory, as if on purpose, as if to make sure I didn't notice." So she's getting even more nervous, saying, "Mark, you need to calm down. You're having an episode, a psychotic break." Says, "No, I'm not. Am I, Waxman?" She kind of fumbles for a second and says, "Ah, hell. You got me, Moon Knight," as we get this very evil smile. So yeah, that's where it's revealed it was actually Waxman. And he says, "I couldn't help myself killing those girls. I like what I like. I never thought that you'd catch it. Doesn't matter, though. Zodiac won't be happy about his plan going off the rails, but screw him. I'm just going to kill you." Waxman obviously goes in for the attack. And then Moon Knight tells him, "Do you think I'm an idiot, Waxman? Do you think I'd come here unprepared?" as he throws these liquid nitrogen grenades, I suppose. So, of course, those explode, causing Waxman to obviously freeze. And then Moon Knight says, "I told you that I was going to hurt you." We get the whole thing of, Waxman all frozen. And then he says, "Hurt you beyond all comprehension." And that's when we wake up in this pitch blackness as Moon Knight is trying to talk to Waxman, saying, "You should be thawed out by now. Answer me." So Waxman just says, "What? What the hell is this?" And he tells him, "You're in a steel sphere, Waxman. Airtight. Seams welded. You're not getting out of there unless I let you out." So Waxman just says, "Is that it? You're going to keep me in here forever? I'll wait you out. You're going to slip up sooner or later. I don't eat. I don't breathe. I got all the time in the world." And then Moon Knight just says, "You're going to need it, because if you don't tell me what I want to know, I start pouring concrete and you become a part of the foundation of this overpriced condo building. Execution by gentrification, Waxman. Alone, forever, in the dark. How long before the screaming madness sets in, I wonder? The screaming that never stops. Days? Years? But hey, you've got all the time in the world to find out, right?" So, of course, Waxman freaks and says that, she's alive, the doctor's alive, Zodiac has her. And he's even saying, "I'll tell you where, I'll tell you anything." He hands the little walkie-talkie over to Soldier saying, take down the location. And then Tiger's asking, "What are you doing?" He says, "Something terrible, Tigra. Something terrible." So he just turns on the whole concrete pourer as they're kind of all standing there a little bit surprised. And then Waxman says, "That's it. That's all I know. You've got to let me out now." And then he hears the sound of the concrete being poured and asks, "What was that?" So he says, "Moon Knight, Mark, you can't do this to me. I cooperated." He says, "Yeah, you did. Hurts being lied to, doesn't it? See you in hell, Waxman." So he just drops the walkie and, walks away as, Waxman keeps screaming out Moon Knight. And he tells him, you can't do this to me. He turns around and says, I know. I know. That's why Reese isn't here. But Waxman was a serial killer. He deserved worse, and I may just do worse tonight. If any of you want out, now's the time. Like I said, they're all kind of standing there. Soldier looks shocked. Winter's just kind of standing there with a face of grim determination, I suppose. And then Tigra just kind of looks perturbed, but, not particularly phased. And he says, good, we need to move quickly because there's going to be blood tonight. That's where this issue actually leaves off for right now. And pretty interesting. Like I said, I've actually been, somewhat enjoying the Moon Knight series. I'm not going to lie about the comic series. I've been enjoying. It's had its few moments here and there that, could have been improved, but overall, for what it is, it's actually pretty good. I find it entertaining, so that's all I'm really looking for from a comic book. You know what I mean? That's all I really need. Does it entertain me? Yes. All right, then it did its mission. So, putting that aside, as I mentioned, the Moon Knight series, the TV series, is currently ongoing, and it's all right. It's all right. I'm not gonna sit here and say I hate it. I've seen people's objections to some of the stuff, especially with this latest episode, saying, "Well, oh, it's doing this whole thing where a woman comes in to upstage the hero." I don't really know that that's going to be the case. That's definitely the way that it could go, but I don't really think it's fair to judge it based off of what we saw in this, because we still see the whole thing. One thing I will say that I do like is the conflict between the different personas of Mark Spector and Stephen Grant. I'm still a little bit annoyed that they changed Stephen Grant's persona from the comics and made him into this kind of bumbling everyman who's just trying to be normal, trying to live a normal life, even though he doesn't really know what's wrong with him, instead of being, like the Bruce Wayne type. And that's obviously what they said they were trying to avoid. They didn't want the comparisons between Bruce Wayne and him. I get that. I get where that mentality comes from. But at the same time, I mean, he's more than just that, especially because he has different personas. And Moon Knight, even though there are a lot of people who say, well, he's just Marvel's Batman, there are ways to delineate those two things, and you can absolutely do it well if you care enough. Just straight up changing the persona of, one of his personalities from the comics into the TV show, it doesn't really make sense to me. But that could just be me. So there is that one thing. But like I said, in this latest episode, because like I said, as of the time I'm making this video, there's only 2 episodes out. So I've seen some people saying that it's a problem because Stephen Grant needs what's her name, Layla, to come and basically save him, sort of. But for the story that they're trying to tell, it makes sense why she would show up and try to be the one trying to help him out, and he's the one still very much hesitant to do anything, especially to give control of the body over to Mark Spector. So I don't know. It's like I said, overall, I think that it's pretty interesting as far as where the story is going. I like it. This whole thing, with the servants of Ammit, like it's actually pretty interesting. I like that aspect of it, and like I said, I do like the aspect of the way that they're displaying the different, the dissociative identity disorder. So I think that's all of that works pretty well. It still has those touches of that like MCU humor here and there that I could very much do without. I mean, if I want that type of humor, I could watch about 90 to 95% of everything else connected to the MCU and get exactly that. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit less of it and more of just it being its own unique thing without you having to do that thing of like, oh, look at this joke. Doesn't that remind you of everything else we've done? Well, I guess, but I didn't need you to. I know it's part of your whole repertoire of other stuff. You don't need to do that to get me to remember that, and you don't need to include it for it to be good. It can be good without that. So I would be fine with them dropping some of the MCU humor because it doesn't do much for me. It doesn't, it's not a selling point for me for sure. So I don't need it to be in there. That would be where I'm at with the show. I mean, like I said, overall, I do enjoy it. I like it for now. That could definitely change, or it could get even better. I'm not really sure, but from what I have seen thus far, I do enjoy it. I mean, some of the special effects could be handled a little bit differently. Like when Khonshu shows up, every so often looks a little bit weird. Like the graphics, the CGI it doesn't mesh well with the real world. But I think overall they do a pretty good job, especially in terms of lighting and just the the different textures on Khonshu itself. Obviously, there has to be some suspension of disbelief because I mean it's an Egyptian god with a gigantic bird skull as its head. So at some point, there's going to be a little bit where you have to be like, okay, yeah, well, obviously that's not realistic. So there's just that. There's how much of a suspension of disbelief are you willing to employ before you say, okay, now you're stretching it too far because this isn't selling to me what you're trying to get me to buy. So overall, we'll see what ends up happening. I'm not gonna say I hate it. I'm not gonna say I love it. I do like it though. I'll say that. I'm not afraid to say I do like it. I think it's a pretty good show. But like I said, with the caveat that that could change. My opinion could very well change. But there you have it. Not only did you get a comic book review from me, you also got the movie, or not the movie, the show review. Although I didn't really say all that much about the comic, like I said, I'm still enjoying it. So there's that. I like seeing this, slow burn sort of thing where they're bringing in different things and they're kind of just focusing on, Moon Knight and his mission. He's had very little like crossover with anything else other than what's going on in his world, which is something that I like. I want to see more of that. I'm tired of all these big crossover events with everything. Granted, there was that Devil's Reign issue dealing with Moon Knight going to jail. But other than that, it seems like his particular series is just focused on what he's doing. So I can appreciate that because that's what I want more of. I want more series that just focus on the character or a team. But in this case, it's just a character. So I want it to just focus on the character. And that's what it seems to be doing. So I'm all for it and I will keep checking it out. I do enjoy Moon Knight. I always really have. So I don't have a problem with what they're doing with him so far. If it takes a left turn and starts doing some dumb shit, well, I will be talking about it in a video. But I think that's going to do it for me on this particular double edged review video, I guess is what we'll call it. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like the video, make sure you're subscribed and you have the notification bell on. If you want to share the video, I appreciate you. And if you're done here, then go and read a book, possibly Moon Knight. And if not, well, then I'll see you on my next video.